Hello, I'm Deba and this is MechWarrior Online. We all recognise that some mechs perform better than others, so a key question new players tend to ask is, which mech should I buy? There's a whole host of factors that'll affect whether a mech performs well or not. Basic maneuverability, hardpoint locations, and hitboxes, to name a few. But there's one aspect of mechs, and specifically light mechs, that I'll be looking at today: cockpit views. Your cockpit view is a key factor in helping you maintain situational awareness, and this is especially important when you're piloting light mechs, the most fragile weight class in the game. One shot can end your match, so you need to be as aware of the environment as possible. A good view can help considerably, and a bad view? Well, I'll let the pictures speak for themselves shortly. It's now March 2018, and there are 18 light mech chassis in the game, with one new chassis, the Flea, due in mid-June. I'll give an overview of the mechs and their cockpits first, then go through the cockpits one by one. Finally, I'll take a look at a few other mechs that might be of interest. Let's see what the light mechs actually look like. I've arranged these from smallest to biggest, based mainly on height and to some extent frontal profile. In the top left we have the Locust. Going across to the right we have the Piranha, Mistlynx, Commando, Urban Mech and Kit Fox. Moving on to the middle line we have the Osiris, Adder, Arctic Cheetah, Spider, Jenna, and Cougar. At the bottom left we have the Raven, then the Jenna 2C, Javelin, Firestarter, Panther, and Wolfhound. Generally the tonnage of these mechs is consistent with their height and frontal profiles. We have 2 20-tonners in the top left, and we have 3 35-tonners rounding out the picture at the bottom right. Now let's rearrange those mechs, shall we? You might be wondering why I've chosen to rearrange the mechs in this order. Let's take a look at what their corresponding cockpit views look like. Obviously, this is just my personal ranking of the cockpits, but I've put them in order from worst at the top left to best at the bottom right. I've ranked them based on overall field of view, then horizontal field of view, and finally vertical field of view. Starting at the top left, we have the Piranha. This is the latest light mech added to MWO, and it's immediately clear that this cockpit blocks a large part of your view. Going across to the right, it's not until we reach the Cougar that we start seeing more of the battlefield than we do of the cockpit's interior. I'd consider those first 4 cockpits at the top left to give a below average view. The cockpits from the Cougar to the Raven on the bottom row provide what I'd consider an average kind of view. You can see most of what's happening around your mech, but struts or other structural elements do block parts of your view. In my opinion, the Javelin and the Spider at the bottom right have the 2 best light mech cockpits. As you can see, there's little correlation between what the chassis looks like and what kind of cockpit view you'll get. Bigger mechs and mechs that look like they might have more cockpit glass don't necessarily give you better views. If you're interested in playing light mechs in a fire support role, you might want to choose one with a good vertical field of view. In combination with energy hardpoints on the arms, these will make it a bit easier to shoot down UAVs or target enemy mechs at higher elevations. I've made special mention of energy hardpoints because they're probably the most practical type of long-range direct-fire weapons to mount on light mechs. The Locust, Wolfhound, Kit Fox, Osiris, Javelin, and Spider give good vertical fields of view. Now let's take a look at each individual cockpit. This is the Piranha, a fast Clan 20-tonner and the newest light mech added to MWO. It also has, by far, the most obstructed cockpit view of any light mech in the game to date. You can see hardly anything to the sides of a central area, and you'll be referring to a minimap a lot, not the kind of thing you want to do in a fast and fragile mech. Next is the Commando, a fast Innosphere 25-tonner. Just like the Atlas, you'll be looking out the left eye of the mech when you're in the cockpit. The Commando's cockpit view is a big improvement over the Piranha's, but still pretty poor in my opinion. If there are any mechs at the far left or right, you just won't be able to see them out of your cockpit. Here's the Jenna, a fast but big IS-35 tonner. You don't see many Jennas around these days. Their speed doesn't quite make up for their size, so they make fairly easy targets. I think the cockpit's an improvement over the Commandos, mainly because you do get a better lateral view from this cockpit. As you can see though, a lot of the battlefield is still obstructed. This is the Jenna 2C, the clan upgrade of the Jenna, and also a 35-tonner. Like the Jenner, this chassis isn't really fast enough to counterbalance its relatively large size. The cockpit view is pretty much the same as the Jenner's. It looks like PGI just made some minor cosmetic tweaks to the look of the cockpit interior, and that's about it. Next we have the Cougar, a slow Clan 35 tonner. It tops out at around 80 kph, almost half the speed of the fastest light mechs. From one point of view, a good lateral view probably isn't as important for a fire support mech like this, as you'll probably be moving with the main battle line and will be firing at faraway targets while zoomed in. The Adder is also a slow Clan 35 tonner, but moves around 20 kph faster than the Cougar. It has a nice low frontal profile and has an energy hardpoint right above the cockpit, which is fantastic for mounting a long-range weapon. The cockpit view for this fire support mech is probably adequate for the role. This is the Arctic Cheetah, a mid-sized Clan 30 tonner that can move fairly quickly. It probably isn't quite the deadly light mech that it used to be a year or two ago, mainly due to PGI toning down small pulse lasers. Its cockpit gives you a decent view of the battlefield, but I would have liked it better if the lower side views weren't blocked. The Locust is a fast IS-20 tonner and ties with the Piranha for lightest light mech in the game. It's the shortest mech in the game, so it isn't such a big deal that the cockpit interior blocks the lower portion of your view. Everyone else is going to be in a taller mech than you anyway, so downward visibility isn't such a priority. Here's the Wolfhound, a fast but big IS-35 tonner, and probably the biggest light mech in the game. Unlike the other 35 tonners, it currently has some nice armor quirks, so it's noticeably more resilient in battle. Looking at the chassis itself, you'd think that it'd give a splendid view of the battlefield, but it turns out to be only slightly better than average. That upper glass panel is perfect for spotting and shooting down UAVs. The Mistlynx is a moderately fast Clan 25 tonner, and the second smallest Clan mech currently in the game. It probably does best when it's near the main force, as it's not really fast enough to keep pace with the fastest light mechs. From the outside, its cockpit looks tiny, but the view from inside is actually decent. It's a pity that the struts are so thick, otherwise this could have been a better than average cockpit. The Urban mech is a slow IS-30 tonner, and a favourite of the player base. Most other light mechs look sleek and deadly, or bulky and powerful, but the Urby, well, it's unique. This used to be a terrible performer, but PGI has toughened it up to the point where it can be a serious contributor to the team. The cockpit view is fairly clean and functional, with very good lateral views. The Kit Fox is a slow Clan 30 tonner, and maybe doesn't inspire amusement like the Urby, but it has its own special look too. The design actually makes me think of a spider more than anything else. That's an actual spider, by the way, not the light mech of the same name. The cockpit view would be excellent if it weren't for those very thick vertical struts. Next we have the Panther, a big and moderately fast IS-35 tonner and probably the second biggest light mech in the game. It's normally best in a fire support role, though it seems to be rare on the battlefield these days. This is actually one mech where the chassis gives you a good idea of what the cockpit view will be like. It gives a good view across the breadth of the battlefield, but not much in the way of a vertical view. The Firestarter is a big, fast IS-35 tonner that used to be one of the most powerful light mechs in the game. It actually has quite a good cockpit view. It'd be nice if the vertical struts were just a bit thinner, but really there's not much to complain about here. The upper control panel blocks any potential view of UAVs directly in front of you, but this mech tends to be in more of a strike role than a fire support role anyway. Here's the Osiris, a fast IS-30 tonner and one of the newer light mechs added to the game. It's a flexible mech that can take a wide range of engines. You can run it at pretty much anything you like, up to 150 kph, depending on the engine you put in. Those fixed struts detract from the cockpit view quite a bit, but even so, I think it's got one of the better cockpit views out there. This is the Raven, a moderately fast IS-35 tonner, and quite unusual in that it has a very small frontal profile, unlike all the other 35 tonners currently in the game. When you see its side profile, you can see where all the mass is. The cockpit gives a good view of the battlefield, and the struts are all in conventional places. It's similar to the cockpit of a 75-ton Marauder actually. The Javelin is a fast IS-30 tonner that's somewhat tall but quite agile. It has one of the best cockpit views you can get in a light mech. Just look at all that scenery outside the mech, and even the thick diagonal struts at the sides don't detract too much from the functionality of the cockpit, though I would have preferred it if they'd been thinner. This cockpit view actually makes me think of a helicopter cockpit in some ways. Finally, we have the Spider, an IS 30-tonner designed for zipping around the battlefield, and its cockpit certainly helps you do that as safely as you can in a light mech. I do think that the cockpit has more struts than we really need, but at least they're not too thick and they don't block your view too much. For me, this is the best light mech cockpit currently in the game, edging out even the Javelin. That wraps up our look at each individual cockpit, but there's one more light mech to consider, the Flea. This will be a fast IS 20-tonner like the Locust, and it's due to be introduced in June 2018. From the artwork, it looks like this mech should have a good cockpit view. I think it'll have a similar view to that of the Locust, but without most of the struts in the central area. While I don't have as many medium, heavy, or assault mechs as I do light mechs, a few did come to mind while I was preparing this video. Here are some mechs from other weight classes with nice cockpit views. First, we have the Assassin, a fast IS 40-tonner. Next, we have the Griffin, an IS 55-tonner. Here's the Ebon Jaguar, a Clan 65-tonner. And here's the Hellbringer, also a Clan 65-tonner. Finally, we have the Cyclops, an IS 90-tonner. Just for fun, let's flip back to the Piranha one last time. Ouch! Well, there you have it. If you're new to piloting light mechs and the view from the cockpit's important to you, this is what they each look like. I hope this video has been helpful, and thanks for watching.